Well, here we are, day 2 of practice for stop number 3 of the FLW Tour event here on Lake Lanier, presented by Ranger. I got Clark Wendlandt with me, and Clark, looking out here on Lanier, it looks kind of crankbaity. I know you like crankbaiting a little bit in the spring. You catch any on that?
I hadn't caught one on a crankbait yet, to be honest.
Okay, all right. I like the honesty. I appreciate it.
That's just the truth. You know, one thing I've noticed though, and you know, we're pre-spawn, and or at least for the most part, and gosh, these fish are so healthy. I mean, you're just not going to be able to believe how fat these bass are, and they're going to weigh a lot for that reason. I mean, big spots and largemouth are fat too, so I think it's going to be tough to get a whole lot of bites. I just think they're going to be big when you catch them.
Ooh, okay. Well, it definitely sounds like from most of the people we've talked to, the fishing is pretty decent right now. It's not one of those tournaments where guys are like, oh man, I can't get bit. Yeah. Getting bit doesn't seem to be the issue. Maybe separating yourself from some 2.5 pounders to a 4-pounder might be
that might be the issue. Yeah, I agree with that, and that's going to be the key. I mean, if you're just catching 2.5 pounders, then you're going to be somewhere down the middle of the pack, and you're just going to need big ones here. That's just the way it's going to be. And I mean, this lake it's probably better than it's ever been when we fished here.
For sure.
It may be the best it's ever been, period. And you know, it's got herring in it, and it's got a lot of water and a lot of different water colors. You know, you can get really clear water down the lower end, you can get stained to even muddy water on the upper end. So you know, I think guys can fish to their strengths, and it ought to be a good tournament. Have
you looked around in any of that stained or dirty water in these last 2 days?
I actually did today, maybe half a day, and we caught a few, but it wasn't all that great for me. I feel like a guy could catch them up there. There's not that much pressure, and but you got to figure them out. And that's just, you know, same thing, a lower end, upper end, whatever you're doing, you got to figure them out.
We've also kind of heard some rumblings that obviously we know there are big spotted bass in here, but it sounds like maybe to have string together 4 days of really good fishing, you're going to need you a few largemouths and you're going to need some spotted bass. At this point in practice, how do you feel about that?
I'm catching mostly spots right now. So I mean, I know you can weigh big bag of spot, you know, and then catch another big bag, but you know, and I think the tournament day, I think it's going to be pretty windy that day.
For sure.
At least that's what I saw this morning, 25 to 30 mile an hour northwest wind. So, you know, that may make it challenging on the lower end. It really might. So, you know, it's going to be, you just got to make the right decision.
Well, I do kind of want to talk just a little bit of weather stuff. As a whole, the forecast looks pretty decent except for that wind. It is supposed to cool off a little bit, and with these fish in pre-spawn, do you think that will it maybe move some fish back out that might have been, because I think the water temp yesterday in some areas of the lake, it was mid to upper 50s. It might cool it off a little. Do you think that will affect this tournament at all?
I don't think it's going to affect it one bit. I think if it was warm or cold, it wouldn't matter. I just think I don't think they're like going to jump up on the beds if you get 2 days warm and sun, and I don't think they're heading back out if, you know, if you get really, really cold. And I mean,
it is what it is.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, it's the guy that figures them out the best, finds the best pattern, and then, you know, he's got to get a few big bites.
All right. Well, the final thing I want to ask you is for the folks watching this, give me maybe 2 or 3 guys you think you would like to have on your fantasy fishing team this week.
Well, I mean, first one that comes to mind is Brian Thrift. He's done well here before. I remember a championship I fished, and he and I fished in the same area, and we both were doing well, and so he's just good. I mean, he's going to figure them out. And Cody Meyer comes to mind. I mean, you know, spotted bass guru, catches, you know, world record spotted bass kind of deal. You know?
He does.
So I think you would see him doing well here. And, you know, if I had to have a sleeper, yeah, I don't know. I can't really, those 2 come to mind.
Throw your hat in the ring, maybe?
I'd like to think I could do really well here, but, you know, I don't feel I'm not just brimming with confidence right now. I feel like I'm starting to understand it, and so I'd like one more day, and we'll just see.
Well, you got one more day coming, Clark. We're going to let you go get some dinner, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, the rain is coming in. It's cooling off a little bit, but Bradley Dortch, you took time out of your evening to join us, so I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
the first thing I got to look at is I'm staring over at your boat right now, and I see two big Lowrances mounted on the console, and I'm thinking to myself, well, they probably didn't get a lot of use down in Florida, so you probably got them turned on this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always run just 112 up front, one at the dash, and I knew we had Lanier coming, and we got Smith this year, and we got Cumberland, and then I've never been up north to the Great Lakes, and I know we're going up there, so I decided I better beef up the electronics a little bit.
Well, kind of first thing that comes to my head is I would say, well, there's plenty of wood out here you can flip. There's some stained water you can fish. I would kind of picture you be, you know, trying to get on that program. But maybe spotted bass is more your thing this week.
Typically, yeah, it would be, but you know, the spots actually in this lake, you know, have gotten to where they're like Smith Lake. They're a lot bigger than they used to be, and I mean, personally, myself, I think it can be won solely on spots.
For sure.
So, and they're a little more aggressive. I know we got rain 70% tonight and tomorrow, and then the high, I think, first day of the tournament's like 41 or 42.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little cool.
So I decided to stick mainly from Brown's Bridge to the dam, just key it on spots solely.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess in 2 days of practice, you know, you don't need to tell us too much juice, but just give us an idea of how it's fishing. How's that spotted bass bite going right now?
It's tough to find them, but if you get around them, they will bite. I mean, you can catch multiples. I mean, I found one school in like 42 foot of water and, you know, made 2 drops, and it was 2 3-pounders. Now I've idled around for another 2 or 3 hours and found one little school with a few fish in it, but the fish are real spread out, but they're real healthy. They're fat, like they're was getting ready to spawn, and it's probably going to happen next moon, new moon, but I have seen some big largemouth cruising around in the backs of pockets, but I haven't figured out how to con one into biting yet.
Well, in terms of the spotted bass thing, I know there's a lot of brush, there's a lot of deep points and stuff out here. Is it more of a pattern that you can get dialed in on, or is it more of like a particular spot, like this one little area is the deal?
In the last 2 days, it has been just a particular spot. These people there's brush everywhere.
Yeah.
I found brush piles all over the place, and probably out of 20 or 30 brush piles, I've found fish in 3. And then you may find a clump of rocks in, you know, 15 foot of water that has fish in it. It's pretty much where the bait is right now.
Okay. Is
where the fish are. If there's no bait, there's no fish.
Well, you mentioned Smith Lake earlier, right? And
right.
There's bluebacks in there. There's bluebacks in here. Have you dabbled on any of the, I don't know, like maybe a swim bait or something kind of like that to chase down a big old spotted bass?
Yeah, I caught probably the biggest spot I've caught. I caught on a Jinko booty shaker, a little 4-inch. It's like a hand poured swim bait. But I've thrown that thing probably 5 hours, and that's the only bite I've had on it. And like I said, I think it's just whether you're around them. If you're around them, you can get bit. If you're not around them, you know, of course, it's nothing. And it's sporadic. I mean, I've been from west side of the lake, east side of the lake to the dam, and then once you get around some bait and stuff and find, you know, maybe a brush pile or rock pile, you can get bit pretty quick. My plan was just to find as many rocks, brush that had fish in it, and hopefully the odds will end up in my favor if I run enough the first day.
Well, I guess kind of give us a little preview. You got 1 day of practice left. Like you said, the weather's supposed to be sort of marginal tomorrow in terms of rain and stuff. What do you want to try to accomplish tomorrow?
Actually, I think I'm going to spend probably most of my day up towards the ramp.
Okay.
And possibly see if I can find something, maybe if something happens to that, where I can have a plan B closer to the ramp. Maybe find a few spots I can pull in and hopefully get bit on the way back. The water is, you know, quite a bit dirtier above than it is below, so I'm thinking maybe you could crankbait, spinnerbait.
Sure.
You know, if we get some wind during the tournament. So that's my plan for tomorrow.
Well, I like it, man. We'll let you get going because we got a little break in the rain. We got to get the camera stuff packed up.
Thank you.
As always, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.